Hey everyone, welcome back to another podcast episode with Sit Down Hawaii. I am Josh Duhilansid, your host, and we're glad that you're here. Listen, it is our goal and our mission as a podcast to bring people on here to ask questions about things that matter to you, that matter to our neighbors, that matter to our ohana. I'm very, very, very excited for today's guest. Sometimes you do research and you're kind of going through it and you read these profiles and then you come across someone and you're like, wow, this person is very accomplished, very respected. And I think he's going to have a lot of really good insights for you about emergency and management and Hawaii and the whole deal. So please share this with any of your friends. Share this with your family because it's going to be a good podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I don't want to mess this up, so I want to say this correct, okay? As the administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency,
Yep.
James Barros, thank you so much for being here.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Do you like the intro?
Yeah.
I practiced it,
Wow.
Kind of.
Good.
Okay.
Thank
Good.
you.
Awesome. So, James, tell us, formally what you do, what your position is, and a little bit about it.
As the administrator for HI-EMA, the agency oversees the preparedness for the state, our response in the state, some mitigation, and recovery. So during a disaster, we cover from A to Z. And we're the touch point for the FEMA when they come into the state. So the federal government will never come down and go straight to City and County of Honolulu. They'll come through us to DEM, their Department of Emergency Management, and then out to whatever we're doing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of saw this. I want to tell you this early on. If you want to learn more about what HI-EMA does, you should definitely go to their website. It's very clear. They lay it out in a really clear way of what they do, how they prepare, and then what they're asking for. So you oversee just it seems to me like a middleman in a way. We got the feds coming in. You got to be able to negotiate and figure that out with them, speak their language, but then also understand what's going on in Hawaii, like Kama'aina level, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So every disaster, it starts and ends at the very local level, right? If there's an incident, it's going to go to the incident commander who's on the ground making the tactical calls. Then we have DEM or the county emergency managers will help source that incident commander. And then we're helping source that county with the state assets. So somebody said, we just coordinate the response. Absolutely not. We're leading the coordination for that response.
Yeah.
Bringing all state assets, and when the state needs help, we'll turn to the federal government, and they'll step in. The other one that's kind of unique to Hawaii is our relationship with the military. So most states, for example, Florida, if something's happening, they'll turn to their neighbor states.
Oh, wow.
And they'll get help that way. We don't have that.
Yeah.
So our first turn is to our active duty partners in the state. And then outside to other states across the country.
Wow. Ken, as I was kind of going through staff and the YouTube, and there was one thing that hit me really quickly, really hard was that these are local people that care about Hawaii. I want to take a second. Just how did you get here? Where are you from? I think it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
So I grew up in Pro City. My family's from Pro City. My mom's originally from Wahiawa. My dad was from Kahuku. They met in high school and then, grew up in Pro City. Yeah, he was on football, basketball player back in the day.
Oh, nice.
Depending who you talk to. If I talk to my dad, my mom was chasing him.
Yeah.
You talk to my mom, no way, he was chasing me. But they grew up countryside, and that's where we spent pretty much our childhood growing up in Wahiawa. The old Crest, I forget the name of the store, but that old Wahiawa. And then Kahuku, my grandfather worked on the sugar mill.
Wow.
And their house was right across the street. So we spent, our every weekend down Kahuku or Wahiawa.
My family was there too. Crazy.
Yeah.
Kahuku, but it's big banyan tree right behind the super rat.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Awesome. And so you grew up. So you lived in Pro City, but then you went to high school.
Yeah. So I went to St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then how did this all come about for you to like land where you're at now? I know you can give me the abridged, but I read a lot. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
So I end my career in the military. So I do active duty, come home, start teaching, get back in the National Guard. We deployed during Iraq.
Oh wow.
So then I start full time with the Guard. Spend 10 years working full time for the Hawaii National Guard, Army National Guard, and that's when I realized I was a lieutenant colonel, and I had it's called the Surf P, and they specialize in urban search and rescue, swift
Oh, wow.
water, and like mass decontamination for hazmat. And that's when I started looking at how the National Guard is supporting the state. Because prior to this was all about fighting the wars.
Yeah.
Back in the day was the Soviet Union and then North Korea, and then we go to Iraq, Afghanistan. Then I came home and we started looking like, wow, that's amazing. And one of the first events for me was Hurricane Iselle as a National Guard full-time battalion commander, posturing my soldiers on the Big Island and on Oahu to be prepared for this hurricane that was tracking. We should have got a pounding from, but the mountains blocked us.
Yeah.
Big Island. And then that was the other one we learned, albizia trees. That's when we first start learning that, hey, these albizia trees, they're rubbish.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. Like what?
Yeah.
What is this?
So it's it's a beautiful tree. It looks like a African kind of
Like a monkey pod or something big? Or?
it's super big, but it's weak.
Oh.
So it gets hit by winds and it just starts collapsing. And so
wow.
now everybody's like, get rid of these albizia trees.
Oh wow.
And so in HI-EMA, I'm feeling that impact because everybody's like, HI-EMA, go take care of some trees.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not my kuleana to take care of all the trees. But that's where we learn albizia trees. But that's when I realized the National Guard's impact for the state and how we can be prepared from the National Guard side and what it means for the community. So I retire from the Guard, and well, let me back up because during COVID, I'm part of the, even before COVID was 2018 was the floods on Kauai that just pound, the north side. We do a response for that. At the same, right after we're drawing down of that, the lava erupts on the Big Island. So now we stand up again for the Big Island. So I'm the director of domestic operations for that. Then we go into COVID, which is a huge impact to the state and the Guard. We stand up a joint task force, and we have island commanders across the state helping the counties with their efforts. And then I retire. Kind of enjoying a contractor. I was a contractor. And then General Howard called me up and he said, hey, I'll let you take over HI-EMA. I think I did the super Portuguese St. Louis thing because I said, Roger, sir, let's do it. Hung up. And then I realized, what did I just do? But jumped in and learned that there's a great team at HI-EMA. And it reflects the state. I have some people from the continent. I have some locals that grew up here.
Yeah.
I have some immigrants. I got the gamut up there, and it's amazing to see them to be part of this team that says, hey, we want to look at the preparedness of the state. We want to be ready to do some kind of response, what that looks like, into the recovery, into mitigation. They're working hard every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I kind of see you've been on all sides, right? You've been boots on the ground in the front, and now you're directing people. And I think that's really important for leadership, especially when emergencies is always. What did they say? You always have a plan to emergency hits, and then you're like, oh, how good was that plan, right? So, and then it seems like, I mean, I'm in my mind, it almost seems impossible, right? Like emergency for everything.
Yeah.
Wow. But just in that span of, let's just say 5 years, from flooding to lava to COVID, that's a rapid amount of experience quickly. And I think that's really, really beneficial. I have a question, and I'm going to kind of pepper in some of these questions. If you're listening and you're not on our Discord, please check out our Discord at Sit Down Hawaii. If you've got questions, that's where you want to give them. Someone brought up, just in your opinion, how ready, if there is a metric that do you feel we are? Like, are we, hey guys, we got a lot of work to do, or hey, we're ready, or like, how do you kind of see it from your point of view?
How ready are we? I keep saying we're not.
Mm.
We're not at that state of readiness that I think we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had a conversation this morning with John Vieira, my community guy, and I said, "My man, we don't have time.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence right now. We gotta get that 14 days ready. We gotta have the contingency plans for what if this, what if that, what if this.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of plans, and like you said,
Yeah.
my plan is good. But as soon as I make contact with that hurricane, with the enemy,
Yeah.
it's gonna change, and we got to be flexible enough to react. So
Yeah.
if I don't know if I would give a number where we are in our readiness. What I do know is that there was a professor from the University of Hawaii, and his estimate is that less than 20% of the citizens in Hawaii are
Yeah.
prepared. So
Wow.
that concerns me. So now he tells me that I got to look at my public affairs officer. I got to look at my community outreach and go, hey, we need to do a better job of educating our citizens on what is being ready to look like.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. We should maybe we should think. Let's go into that a little. If you go online, you'll see the 14-day ready plan. But if you're listening to this and you're not prepared, let's go through that. In the best case situation, what do we need residents, Kama'aina, to be prepared for? What do we need to have?
So the 14 days ready. So HI-EMA's, and that's our standard, right? Hawaii standard. Because FEMA puts out, hey, be several days, have several days of supply. What we're looking at is 14 days will give us that window that you and your family can sustain themselves for 2 weeks if something happens to the port, if something happens to the airports. And we gotta hunker down on our own. So like COVID, when we started looking at shutdowns, you gotta be able to hunker down and say, okay, I can handle. One of the things coming out of COVID, though, everybody's like, I did them during COVID. I was all good.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you had power, you had water, you was on Netflix the whole time. What happens when that goes down? When we don't have that connectivity, what does that look like? What does it look like when your refrigerator is out because we don't have power?
Yeah.
So kind of looking, and what I don't want is I don't want all doomsday preppers, right? But there's a line that says, "Hey, I'm ready for COVID, for a tsunami, for a hurricane, whatever was out there." Because I'm tracking on my hazard mitigation plan 15 natural and man-made hazards. Well, what's the unknown that I don't know about
Right.
yet, and
Right.
being ready for that.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty interesting. I don't think I ever thought about the unknowns, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to 14 days ready, specifically food wise, like what should we be packing? What should we be getting?
So non-perishables. The other thing is the food that you already have in your cabinet, in your freezer, in your refrigerator. That's part of your 14 days.
Okay.
So you would cook those first, right? A refrigerator powers out. My freezer is gonna defrost. If I don't open it, I kind of know what's in there. So one of the tricks would be the messaging's coming out. It is a hurricane coming. I go to my refrigerator and I take a picture of my cell phone because then I know what's in there.
Got you.
So now, hey, tomorrow night, we'll eat this, and then the next day we eat this. So I open, take it out, let it defrost, and let it stay sealed for as long as you can.
Yeah.
So there's buckets that Costco sells for these
Yeah.
emergency meals. What's interesting is talking to people that are looking at the food sustainability of the state. So we're
Yeah.
not bringing in 80% of the food that we use. We grow it locally. And when you listen to them and you have conversations with them, it's like, oh, we know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible, but it's got to be this kind of change in our mindset to say, yeah, that's what we want to invest in.
What do they need to make that happen? If it's investment, is it financial? Like, what does that look like?
I think there's some financial investments that are happening at the smaller scale, but getting I think our citizens to look at that and it's a little bit harder because the easy thing is drive through McDonald's,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Bang, drive through, I'm good. But looking at, okay, what is our food sustainability from the farmer that's growing it to the market to our plates.
Yeah.
And for me, as we do a better job with that, I think we'll do a better job of being prepared for any kind of disaster because
Right.
we can be more self-sufficient. Like COVID, everybody started. In fact, I tried it. I was guilty of trying to grow vegetables on my lanai with buckets.
Yeah. How'd it go?
Yeah, no, not good.
Not good.
I did. So I watched YouTube and I
yeah.
do carrots. Carrots was nice and bushy. I was like, oh, right on, it's working. You pull it out and then the carrot was only about that big.
Yeah, I think the sustainable approach to it long term,
Yeah.
and that's also an economic thing as well, and staying maybe even helping alleviate some of the pressures of tourism when we have more agriculture and things. I think it makes sense. And so what I'm hearing is this: we need to have 14 days of food, non-perishables. Same thing with water. It's 14 days, and I think I read it's a gallon a day per person.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a family of 4.5. I have a baby on the way, so that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So one of the good things, Board of Water Supply gives out these collapsible bags. So you just fill that up, and I think it's like 2.5. So if you get that, that's 2.5 days just for me though, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about it, how many families have the space to stack all these water bottles,
Right.
right? So that's one of the challenges. If you go to City Mill, they have the other one that you can fill the bathtub with.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. So
Yeah.
is that recommended too? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
What about just the bathtub? I know I grew up with that.
Yeah.
Like, I think was it Eva or one of them.
Yeah.
Whole water was like the whole bathtub. All the sinks was
Yeah.
plugged. All the water.
Yeah.
Is that also like?
Well, if you talk to Board of Water Supply, they're like, hey, because then there's a run on the water that way too, right? So having some kind of supply available to you, but of course augmenting with a couple gallons of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, what I do for my family is we have some jugs of water under the sink.
Oh,
That's
gotcha.
there. We label it month and year.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, go dump them in the plants. Let's refill it. So
That's it's funny you say after a while dump it. So we got a bunch of stuff during one of the hurricanes that was headed straight for us and it made that crazy turn.
yeah.
How was that?
Yeah.
Like, with category 4 and then just crazy.
That
right?
and that right there is the state's worst case scenario. The hurricane coming straight at
Yeah, it was Oahu.
Oahu, south side. So at the time, I was still in the National Guard.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're at Diamond Head. Okay, everybody doing the prepping. Everything going on. That evening, I drove home because I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going home. I'm going to take a shower.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back because we're going to be here for days. And I drove through Kapahulu, and it was empty.
Wow.
There was nobody on the roads. Businesses boarded their windows. So I was like, okay, right on.
Yeah.
People taking this serious. This is serious.
Oh, yeah.
So we got back and we watched the hurricane approach and it was like, whoa, what
Crazy.
happened?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that the shear between the islands, cut the head off the hurricane and was like,
Oh, it was a
what
beautiful
went
day.
on? Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm like, wow.
And had surf. It was like beautiful day. I had surf.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we bought a ton of stuff, like choke stuff. And just recently, actually, shout out to my mom. She was like, oh, you better go in there and check. All of that stuff is probably expiring. And sure enough.
Yeah.
So we were eating macaroni and cheese. Right? We had all kinds of stuff, all these canned goods, you know.
Yeah.
So just note this stuff. If you got stuff, check it.
Yeah.
You check it because no need buy groceries that week or whatever. But yeah, I want to. So there was a question that was brought up, and I won't say their name, but they asked about. So you folks do the sirens, right? Every beginning of the month.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You guys are also part of the group that did the missile crisis.
Yeah.
So I just the question was, are we ready? How does that work? Did we fix whatever the problem was when it was a faulty alarm? And we can all go through our stories of what had happened.
Yeah.
But what does that look like? Yeah.
So, I mean, they recognized that the agency made a mistake. They looked at the way we trained the personnel and the way we exercise, because it was an exercise, right? It was supposed to be that shift's exercise, and they made mistakes.
Got you.
So they put some stuff in place. Before we send stuff out, there's another eyes that look. Okay, good.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there's.
Well, I don't really know what it was.
Yeah.
Like, you just telling me it was an exercise is again, I don't really know, but you know, all the conspiracies. Oh,
Yeah.
so and so
Yeah.
and so and so and Russia or China took over our thing.
No.
You know,
was a human error. So we can fix that, right?
Yeah.
Human error we can fix. So now we got some protocols in place so that doesn't happen again. The message, there is no false message that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, in your opinion, right, we talked about natural disasters, things we cannot, if it rains, if it's a tsunami, and then we have our man-made potential disasters. In your mind, is there a different set of tools for different things? I'll give you an example. You know, one of the questions was about the power grid. What happens if the power grid goes down, or what happens if an enemy takes over the power grid? You hear of these things of, you know, China's got technology, they're part of the chips or whatever that may be. Is there a different approach to everything? And like, should we have a specific thing or kit for specific scenarios? What does that look like?
From my perspective, it's always going to be consequence management. I don't care what caused the power to go down. Could be a cyber attack, or it could be a twig that just fell on the line.
Right.
Either way, it's impacting, right, normalcy right here that's happening. So for us, it's just consequence management. We don't recommend have a cyber go kit, have a tsunami go kit, have a go kit, have a go bag, and when time comes, you grab your go bag. You're good for a couple of days. At home, you have your stash. So I can understand the concern about the power grid, but we can last a long time without energy, right?
Really?
Without power.
Like how? Because in my mind, I always think like, man, I wish I had more solar power, or in your opinion, how long can we last? And then like, what is is there like a mock response time? Like if power goes down, we know we can get things back up in 2 weeks working with HICO, or is there things that
so
you guys
they do they work these different contingencies on what it looks like. So even our cyber warriors, they have that piece of, okay, how are we defending the cyber network?
Yeah.
And if something happens, how do they get in to fix it and restore it?
Yeah.
HI-EMA's Kuleana will be, okay, what's the impact of this down power, and how do we restore that?
Yeah.
And in kind of prioritizing too, right? Where do we absolutely need the power?
Yeah.
Our hospitals, right?
Yeah.
Certain, and we'll kind of tear that down to where do we absolutely need the power.
Is that HI-EMA's Kuleana to make sure that HICO has those things in place, or is that HICO's responsibility to report that to you? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's we're working a lot with HICO and the counties for all these different contingencies. But it's on them to have their plans, and but sharing it with us. Yeah.
Got you.
So we don't go over there and let me see your plans.
Yeah.
But we'll constantly have conversations with them on different kind of planning that they're going through.
It seems to me like when there's an emergency, right? Everything hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, we should have done this.
Yeah.
You know, the Maui fires, you should have cut the grass. There's the power lines. There's all these things. It's easy to point fingers afterward,
Yeah.
right? And your job is one of those steps is preparation and trying to get ahead of that. And so I can only imagine how difficult, how confusing that must be.
Yeah.
I want to bring up Maui because I know you folks had a pretty you had a hand in that, and maybe just an update. You know, what from your point of view, what were we able to do? What, you know, how did that go down? And I know they're not done. We still got a lot of ways to go.
A lot of work to do. I mean, so the governor said it again last week when we were on Maui. Was the first year was about housing the displaced citizens, was taking care of that piece. That whole that's kind of slow recovery piece. Now we're starting to rebuild. So amazing work with FEMA and U.S. Corps of Engineers. All the residential properties in Lahaina and Kula have been cleared.
Oh wow!
So they cleared it all out. They're working the commercial properties. In fact, a couple houses are already built that were damaged.
Oh wow!
They rebuilt them already. So we're looking at Maui's looking at how can they expedite the rebuild in Lahaina.
Yeah.
There's a group housing that FEMA has that's Mauka, and the state has their housing. So Kilohana and Kalaiola are the two sites. One is FEMA and one is state. And those are for maybe if you're a renter or you weren't qualified under the FEMA programs, you can go into the state side, and then FEMA has theirs. So it's every time we go, we see improvements, and it's working, with FEMA, with the Corps of Engineers, with our state partners, with what the county wants, with the community to move that forward. So lot of great progress.
Yeah, I see. So you see FEMA, see folks, you see what the government's doing, you see what the mayor's doing, and what Maui County is doing, and then you see this tremendous outpour of just locals, churches, nonprofits. You got all these stories, and your heart goes out for anybody that was a part of that in Lahaina. And in your opinion, just because what you have to oversee is kind of a big umbrella. Like, hey, it could be lava, could be water, could be power, could be whatever. In your opinion, what is most pressing like now in your mind? I know we're talking about 14 days, get ready, but is it we need to shore up our grid, or we need to shore up, like, is there something that you're most pressed in making sure that we are prepared for? Is it hurricanes? Is it floods?
If we go back to August 23, even before the fire destroyed Lahaina, it was the winds that caused a lot of damage, right?
Yeah.
Brought trees down, brought wires down, took some roofs off. So when I see that, is like we gotta strengthen our infrastructure. That's one thing that we gotta look at. So when you was asking the question, I was like, oh man, there's
a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. But I think if as a homeowner, if you can strengthen your house, right? Do the hurricane clips, do the hurricane tie downs, strengthen your house, so that you're not a victim of the wind. The wind is going to be devastating for us, right? Because a hurricane, we're going to get wind, now we're going to get rain, and then we're going to get storm surge. So I just was talking to some scientists. They're trying to show me some modeling on, you know, they were showing me modeling on the continent. I was like, hey,
Right.
that's awesome, but do that for me on the island. I want to see what the
Yeah.
island will look like, because I'm going to get rain from the mountain
Right.
and I'm going to get ocean water coming. Now what?
Yep.
Show me that. Don't show me Florida. I don't care about Florida.
Yeah.
So, but if I can strengthen my house as a homeowner on the wind, then I'll have someplace to hunker down.
Yeah. I think, being in Hawaii, and we've been blessed to not get smashed with a hurricane. I mean, if I feel like the pulse of most local, I'll speak for my family. It's like, hey, we do for one.
Yeah.
We never get hit for a while now, and yeah, we just pray that we don't. That's
Yeah.
just my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you see some of these months where it's just basic heavy rain,
Yeah.
massive potholes, big problems, down poles, and it's always that, oh, if we get hit, it just doesn't seem like we're ready. It just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like we're ready to withstand that. Go ahead.
No, but we weren't ready for COVID though, right? We weren't as a state ready for COVID. Yet we came together and we got through it.
Yeah.
And what from my job now is that's what I want to replicate. So that community coming together.
Yeah.
West Maui, the same thing.
Yeah.
They weren't ready for this. But as soon as they were impacted, as soon as there was devastation, that community came together
Right.
and supported one another. I want to take that energy. I want to take that motto and say, hey, let's do that now.
Yeah.
Let's not wait for COVID 2027.
Yeah.
Let's start building that network and strengthen, our community now, so that if we're living in the same neighborhood, hey, I know I can rely on you and you can rely on me.
Yeah.
Right. So that's to me, when we talk about the readiness of the state, is how ready am I as an individual? Okay, my family, my immediate family in my house, and then my neighborhood. How
Yeah.
strong can we be as a neighborhood, as a community? Because like I said, we saw it in West Maui.
Yeah.
And then those that weren't impacted, they were throwing stuff on boats and bringing it in, because Maui was, West Maui
Right.
is pretty isolated. In a big disaster, we're going to see a lot of isolation across the state.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of think of like, we out here alone. Like we got,
Yeah.
we're in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah.
We're not close to anything really. And even if you try to fly things in, it's hours,
Yeah.
if not days away. Right. And so it's interesting, you bring that up, and I kind of want to go do this before we take a quick break. But on the website, and you've said this before, I think you said on the news as well, is that this is we need to, as a public, we need to take responsibility on our end. We need to be prepared. We need to have things set up, emergency plans and food and water, and kind of go through it, even though you don't want to. Like, I don't want to go through this, but just to be somewhat prepared, so that way you folks can step in and do your job. And if we get ahead of it, it's a kako all hands on deck type
Right.
deal. So I think with that, I want to take a break, but listen, if you're listening, we are Sit Down Hawaii, a podcast that talks about things that you want to hear about. Thank you so much. Talk to you later. Hey, hope you're having a good time on the podcast. Wanted to take a quick break to bring today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Sweet Life Tea. It's a tea that helps people get through anxiety. Listen, I have anxiety flying, I have anxiety kind of in a lot of areas. And it was something that was affecting me. And so I found this tea. It has organic, natural, vegan, non-GMO ingredients that when you put them all together, it just helped me relax. So there's things like chamomile, licorice root, lavender. And I felt like I wanted to bring you something that helped me. So if you're struggling with anxiety and you just need something to kind of relax that's organic, go ahead and go to sweetlifetea.com. Put in the code SitDownHawaii for 10% off. Okay, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sit Down Hawaii. I'm glad that you're here. Listen, we're here talking to HI-EMA, to James James, I feel like I keep on mentioning Barros.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're talking to James Barros, and a lot of good information. Listen, do me a favor, share this. Share this with your family. Share this with your community. It's going over really, really specific things on how we can be ready and prepared for any emergency. You probably have these questions, the same that I have, of what do I need to do in the case of all these crazy events happening. And so, I think it's important that we share this. Also, go ahead and join us on Discord so we can get more questions out there. But James, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, right on.
I know you're busy. I was saying I really hope there's no emergencies during this, because then this is done.
Yeah.
Cut. Everybody's going crazy. I want to go into like specific scenarios. So through the Discord, there was just a few topics.
Okay.
And I just kind of want to keep them broad. I want to get your thoughts on them, and are we prepared? Have we thought of it? That type of thing. Maybe not specifics, especially if they're classified and you can't talk about them. But the first one was specifically on the energy grid. Like everyone keeps talking about, what does that look like? Are we ready? What is that? The reliance on our energy, and I'll kind of, in my mind, we got these go bags. I'm like, where are we going? Like, to be honest, like maybe down the road or to another family member's house, or like it's not the mainland where you go to the woods and like, what are we going to catch animals and like what? So I guess the question is, and you did address this somewhat, but I want to just make this really clear for the people who are asking about it. We have plans, we have thoughts. Are we ready if anything goes down with the grid and energy?
In partnership with HICO and other state agencies and federal partners, I think we are. I think they're postured and prepared for different scenarios to our power grid. But from, I mentioned it earlier, we can survive off for a long time without power, but we cannot survive without water. So keeping the water flowing, keeping power to hospitals, critical infrastructure for us. But the Hawaii Energy Office, HICO, Office of Homeland Security, they're all working and assessing the power grid, and to ensure the power grid is strong and able to bounce back and recover from whatever hits it. Yeah.
There was a comment about the rolling blackouts, and I don't know. So this is just, and maybe you don't know as well. But is that foreshadowing, or is that something that, I guess the thought is, if we're having problems with power now and we got to do these rolling blackouts just to kind of make sure we have enough power, what needs to change? Is there something that needs to change, or do we need more power, or like how does that work?
I think I don't know maybe I shouldn't answer because I don't know. I don't know the specifics, kidding specifics. But as they upgrade the system, there will be strains at certain times, and as we got to do maintenance here, there's going to be strain here. So I don't think the rolling blackouts are a foreshadowing of the vulnerability of our network.
Yeah, that's well put, because it just kind of seemed like that was what the thought was. You mentioned again, hypotheticals. You mentioned about water. There was a question that came in about specifically the Leeward Coast. There's no fresh water running around there. There was water that was the water table underground, and there's no desalination space or any processing of water on the Leeward Coast. And one of the worries is that if we get extended periods of time where we cannot get access, let's say roads get closed or things get blocked, that the water specifically on the Leeward Coast is going to be very, very hard. And so I guess my thought is, what can we do there? Is there anything in the plans or anything in the works for a desalination plant, or anything that we can kind of get ahead of around that?
I'm not sure on the desalination plant and plans for that. What I do know is we're trying to strengthen the the Board of Water Supply's ability to move water. Because when you think about the Red Hill scare,
Yeah.
that
Crazy.
would have been a major disaster for Hawaii,
Oh yeah.
for the island, right?
Um,
But then they would have to rely on moving water from other sources. So we're working with them to strengthen that piece to be able to move water across the island.
is that like through, I guess, cars and any other transportation method? I guess.
Yeah. So some of it is using tankers, but ideally we don't have to use that, and we can just shift to a different route and ensure that that's moving, and we keep
Gotcha.
that moving.
So with the pipes,
Yeah.
just keeping
Yeah.
things clean.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I want to go into the harbor and just the movement of food and Matson and Pasha and all these. And I would say 60-70% of the questions was what happens? And you can insert any other way if China takes the seas, if Matson gets backed up, if somehow we just cannot import things through our harbors. Is there enough food? Are we ready? Like, what do we have planned there? For that,
Right.
for our harbors.
So wow, let me unpack that question. That was a lot.
Good. Yeah.
That was a lot. When I first came on to HI-EMA, I was super concerned about the Honolulu harbor and that being a single point of failure. But after talking to Department of Transportation harbors and the expertise that they have, talking with the companies that are using it, talking with the Coast Guard, we have a good plan for the harbor. If something happens inside the waterway, our partners are there. If a hurricane is coming, we talk to them. Okay, what's the plan to prep the harbor? And Matson, Young Brothers, Pasha, they all have plans, and good plans too, right? So my anxiety over the harbor came down a little bit. It was super coming in. It was super high.
Yeah.
After talking to everybody and looking at, okay, what is the plan? Who's our partners that we're talking to? Great partnerships out there at the harbor. Anxiety came down a little bit, but yet we still have to find ways that we can strengthen it. It's not, bro, we all good.
Right.
No. We got to find ways to strengthen, build resiliency in the harbor. Part of the question too, okay, what if something happens on the West Coast?
Yeah.
To be able to push this way.
Right.
That's something that, we had conversations with Young Brothers and Matson, and okay, what does that look like? We also have, we formed a public partner forum. And one of the small groups is talking about food distribution and not just the distribution, but the cooking of it and getting it out. So from, cradle to grave on the food piece. Okay, where is it coming from? And that group looks at that too and goes, okay, there's not a whole lot of warehouse space so that we have this whole abundance of supplies,
Right.
because it's going from the ship holding onto the shelves.
Right.
So there's concerns there, and that's why we even if the family cannot get 2 weeks ready, what if you get 5 days ready?
Right.
What if you can do 3 days ready? And then we recognize that there's some families out there, there's no way. They're going from day to day. And that's why we're saying, okay, as a community, we got you.
Yeah.
I got my 14 days. I can do 14 days. Plus, I got 3 more days. And then, 2 months from now, I'll build 3 more days. So now I can take that and share with that family that doesn't have the capability to have their even a 1-day supply.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, I think looking deeply into what you folks are doing in gathering community, it's very good. I saw. I know you folks are talking to small businesses. We've seen you talk to restaurants. We've also got supermarkets, and that's encouraging, right? I think sometimes as a public, we need to like really look and dig deep to see what is going on. Are we putting things together, or are we just complaining to complain? Like, and this is coming from me. This is just what I'm gathering, right? Is we want to be proactive. We want to make sure as a community that we can take care of one another. But at the same sense, it is at least comforting to hear that, things are being addressed.
Yeah.
And I had this idea that I would just ask you questions, and I wasn't sure if you'd answer them or but to be honest, you're answering what the best of what you know, and I think it's very sincere. And you might have questions yourself. You can go ahead and ask those questions on the comments below. I have just a few more questions, and then maybe a thought. What is the one message that you want to drive home to local people, like right now? What is it that's top of mind that you think is really important?
I keep saying it's a cockle thing, that we're gonna be in this together. No matter what it is, if it's a tsunami, if it's a hurricane, if it's war with China, if it's a what doesn't matter. We're gonna be in this together, and we gotta be able to strengthen those connectivities, that network, so that we can respond and recover, and keep on living.
Yeah. Okay. One last thought. You did this Ololo Hawaii segment with, I think it was your staff.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
What was it, like 20 words or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay, I'm putting you on the spot. I know it is. But out of all the words and all the principles and all the things that you hold your team to, what's the one that just drives home for you? You're like, this means a lot to me. This word, this concept.
I keep going back to, and part of it was the lessons learned from Maui. As we look back and we reflect back, I think it's going to be ha'a.
Nice.
That you from the government perspective, from the state perspective, having that humility, to ask for help when you need it, to know that you don't have all the answers.
Wow.
And it's kind of strange because I come from that military world where, wow, we're going to solve the problems.
Yeah.
Well, but I need help. We're going to solve the problems.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a kako thing. So I think ha'a is probably the first word when I think lessons learned and what we want to get done with HI-EMA.
That's great. Yeah, any other thoughts before we close out? But I love that. Ha makes complete sense. Even asking, even just the approach to the public of us doing our own kuleana, I think is important. Yeah.
I think just for us as a state to be ready for anything that happens, we'll pull together. But I wanna build that strength now in blue skies, so I don't have to wait until a hurricane or a tsunami or something else happens, and then we gotta pull everybody. Hey, let's come in now. Auntie, talking about food. When I was sitting talking stories with Auntie Tammy, and I said, "No, you're part of our enterprise. You're part of our emergency management enterprise." She said, "Oh, that's awesome, because we're not an afterthought.
Yeah.
Nobody out there is an afterthought, because we all will be contributing."
Yeah, I saw that. Auntie Tammy was talking about what was it, from Aina to feeding, and I think she even brought up a little bit about how honoring it is for her to do that. And that was awesome. Listen, if you didn't get to hear them talk a little bit about that, I think you should go check that out. There was a segment on the news that was really, really good. I think it was either High Now or one of those. Island Life, yeah. It was really, really good. Okay, well, James, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. Listen, if this is your first time listening in with the Sit Down Hawaii podcast, I want to invite you to just let everyone know we're here. And I want to hear from you. Who needs to be here? What questions do you have? What makes you stay up at night? Good or bad? With that, I'm Josh at Sit Down Hawaii podcast. Take care. Aloha.
Aloha.